Okay, so this tutorial, I'm going to go back over how to do your heart rate lab data, how to put a graph in. If you are on an iPad, this should also work on an iPhone, but I think I've said before, it's going to be difficult to do on a phone just because the screen size is so small. So, what we have here, I've already filled in this data table. Sorry, I realize you can't see where I'm touching on it, but the data is already in here. So you can just copy that in. I'll show you how you can copy it over. So at the bottom, you have your two tabs you can go between. I just pulled this data out of here. So if you want to select data, what you do is you click on a cell, and then you'll see in the upper left and the bottom right corners, there's two little dots. So those are the ways where you can, if you touch that dot, you might want to zoom in a little. I'm zoomed out a lot. Okay, so if you touch that dot and drag it down, you can kind of see that it's highlighting the data. So I'm going to drag down, and then you're going to click anywhere within where you highlighted. I'm going to say copy. I'm going to go back over. Once you've done something within a sheet, something that can be a little confusing is down here at the bottom you can see our little tabs disappeared. So what you have to do is in the top left there's the check mark. This says if you click on that, it's basically saying, okay, I'm done with this sheet for now. So then we're going to go back over here. I am going to delete this data and pretend like it was empty, so in case you wanted to put data in. So now that it's empty, I'm going to click at the top in that first box that I want to put things in. If you double click it, so you click into it, if you click it again, your options should come up. And I'm going to do paste, and it should paste your data right in there. Okay. So now our data is in. This first page is the one that I want you to focus on. This is the graph, the table that is just your data that you collected. So this is the one that you're going to try and make a graph yourself. And the good news is this is going to be simple. The directions, if it didn't make sense when I did it on a computer, the reason is not your fault. It's that it's a totally different process to do it, but it's going to be just as easy as doing it on a computer. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to highlight just this column here. So I just want column C, I just want my beats per minute, and I am going to say plus, and then I'm going to go to the chart, and this gives us a chart of our beats per minute over time. So we can see it looks about the same as we did when we did the in-class one, that it's kind of flat, and then it shoots up for the trials where we're doing exercise, and then it goes back down here to about the same level. And it's totally normal for it to have these jumpy parts in here because, like we said before, heart rate can be irregular. Even if you are, like, your heart rate has raised, it doesn't do it like uniformly. We're not going to expect it to be flat at the top. So I'm going to say OK. And we are going to move this just off to the side. So something that's missing when you graph in the app sometimes is that it's harder. You can't add the axis titles or things into it, but that's fine for now because this is all we need here. And then we can always add that in if we were going into Google Docs. Okay, so here we'll just go over again what you do if you are going to insert a chart is you're going to highlight the column with the data you want. We are going to go to this plus button here. And this is where you can add anything into the chart because there's no insert option. And then click chart. So I'm going to just close this out because I don't want it twice. So that's how we're going to do it in there. As you can see, if you are using the app, it's a very pared down version of what you could do on a computer. So there is a way to use the computer version on an iPad that if we ever need to get to it, I'll show you how to do that. But if you're in the app, this is how we're going to do it. And then you press OK to close this out. So now you're done with this half of the assignment. The second thing we're going to do is we are going to go to the class data set and we're going to see if we can take an average in here. So this part is actually going to be just about the same as if we were doing it on a computer. So if you remember, what we wanted to do is to take an average for trial 1, an average for trial 2, and 3, and 4, and so forth. So we want all 8 of these numbers to take an average and paste it in this last column here so we can see what our class average was. So again, the reason we want to take an average is because everybody does have a different heart rate, and everybody's going to have a different reaction to exercise. So the more people that you can get combined to see if there is a real trend or not, the more accurate your answer is going to be. So to take an average, and the reason we're going to do it on here, or I want to show you how to do it on Excel or in Sheets instead of doing it by hand, is just when you look at these numbers, if I told you you had to take the average of 8 numbers and then I want you to do it 20 times, that's a lot of calculations to do. So this part, I do understand, I recognize that this is kind of a tricky thing to wrap your head around if you've never done it before, and I don't expect you to be pros at this right now. So if you're stressed out about this part, don't worry, I want you to try and follow along. It's one of those skills that it looks crazy and makes no sense and makes no sense and makes no sense, and then one day, like, it just clicks, and then your life gets a little bit easier. And computer math skills are something that are really important going on, so we're just going to work on them. Again, I don't expect it to be perfect, and if you're ever stressed out, just put it in the comments, like always on an assignment when you're working it by yourself at home. Just say, this part I couldn't understand, can we work on this later, and then we'll come back and work on it, okay? So with that being said, we're going to get in. I feel like now I've built it up and it's going to sound really, really scary what we're going to do. But what I'm going to do is just to zoom in because my fingers aren't very good on this iPad. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click in this cell and I want to write into it. So what I do then, I'm not going to double click, down at the bottom in this text or formula bar, if you click in that, that will let you write in. And you can see already that right underneath they have all the buttons for adding a formula. All of our math things that we might need are right in there. So I am going to use that. The first thing we need to do to tell them that it's going to be math that we're doing is to say equals. And you can see that it lights up this fx. It lights up this function or equation button and lets the program know that we're going to do some math. So I've said equals, and then we can just start writing average, and then it clicks down here, so I'm going to say yes, I want to take an average, and it tells me on this prompt that I need to put the values, list all the values, all the numbers that I want to take an average of. So you can write them out. So I could write 16, then put a comma, and then say 19, comma, 20, comma, 13. Or what I'm going to do is, okay, ignore that I just did that. Okay. We're going to go back to taking those averages. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type it in. So we're taking the average. Instead of writing all the numbers in, what I'm going to do is to use the labels of the cells of the little boxes on the table that we're using. So if you look at where that 16 is, and I'm not going to click it, I'll put a little icon in later. If we use it, if you've ever played the game Battleship, I think I've mentioned this before, it's kind of how they make the grids here. So the names of these cells are the letter. You say what letter is at the top of that column, and then what number is on the left of that row. So if I'm looking at the 16 for student A, it's C2. So I'm going to say is C2. And then you can see it highlighted it there for me. So it knows as soon as you say C2 that you're talking about that cell. And then if I want to say everything between C2 and then what turns out to be J2 under student H, I'm going to put a colon and then say J2. And then you can see here it's highlighted all in green. And then, just like on the computer, I'm going to say enter. Say enter. And there we have our answer at the top. Oh, I don't want to touch it again. Okay, so that was kind of a pain. I'm going to admit that I told you all of this was going to be very easy, and then I messed it up a little or showed how it's difficult. So I do want to acknowledge that it is more difficult to do this on an iPad than on a computer, and it's already a little bit difficult to do on a computer. So if you're stressed out on this part too much, leave it blank and you'll just use the averages that I take, okay, and put those into your own graph. So what I'm going to do here is if I click on this, so what I'm going to do now that I have one average, because that was such a pain to write it in, I don't want to do that again. So we're going to do that same trick we did with the computer, where I dragged down from the corner to paste the same equation over and over and over, so I only had to write it once. But if you can see here, there's no way to hover over that corner and get that little cross to show up. I can't do that same trick. So the trick is still there, it's just hidden away. So what I'm going to do is I have the cell I want is open. I'm going to drag down, just like I did before, to highlight all the other data. If I click on that, there's a new option here called autofill. And autofill is going to do the same thing that other trick did. It literally automatically fills in the cells with what it thinks I want, and usually it's right. So I'm going to say autofill, and then I'm just going to check these. So we can see if you look down at this bar at the bottom, it now has the average of row 3, and that's where I am. If I click on the next one, it's the average of row 4. If I click on the next, it's row 5, row 6. So I know that autofill works, so I'm going to close that back out, and I'm going to do it again. So I'm going to take, and all you have to do is to highlight at least one of the boxes that already has an equation in it, and I'm going to zoom in so that it's easier to see what I'm doing. But if you click on the corner of the square and drag it all down, tap within there, press autofill, and that will give you all of your averages. Okay, and now the hard part is over. So I left that graph in here from when I took all of the data. We don't want this crazy graph again. That's too much information. So what we're going to do is the same thing that we did with your data on the first page, is we are just going to tap right on the letter K to highlight this entire column because we want all of the averages. And then I'm going to go to the plus button again, insert a chart, and this time it's given me the chart of my average. So this looks good. So we can add titles in. So let's say average heart rate before and during exercise. Actually, let's cancel that one, because I do know that I told you to say it's the effect of exercise on heart rate. Update my title, and there it is. And then if I like it, that looks good to me, we're going to press that check mark to say okay, and there it is. If you want to move it around, you click on it so that it gets that blue outline, and then if you touch and pull, you can pull it wherever you want. Doesn't matter where you put it, leave it on this page and I can see it. Okay. And then this, you can copy paste it into a doc, but for now, just leave it on here. If you've made it this far with this, you're doing great. You're going to just press check. And then if you are in the app, I can't show you how to do this, but you probably are a pro at doing this already. You know that you cannot turn in the assignment. Maybe you can now. If you can't turn in the assignment in the app, make sure you go back to Google Classroom and press turn in on the assignment so I can look it over and see how your graphs look. And again, if any of this doesn't work for you, if you try it, if you swear you did the exact same thing I did and then the wrong thing popped out, that could have happened. So just put a comment in the assignment, put a private comment so that when I go to grade them, I see that something went wrong on yours and we can troubleshoot it then. Okay? Otherwise, great work. And you are done graphing in Excel for now. So remember, this is all you have to do. Monday, we will go back and write the conclusions. Make sure that you have found that article that supports your claims about heart rate and exercise, or something about why heart rates are different. Okay? So I'll make sure that's reposted as well on Google Classroom. But that is it, and Monday we will come back and see how this went. Again, I apologize for how crazy it was doing it in class. I will not try and make you do that again during class. I don't know why it took me weeks to realize that you can't watch my screen share and also do your own work at the same time. That completely makes sense, so I apologize. Thank you to everybody who pointed out that this was stressful and not working very well. So I will fix that in the future. We'll make sure everything's done over video so you can go back and rewatch, and then class, you'll just get to do your own stuff.